sun looks nice today. Makes all the plants pop up. And with that in mind, what's going on today? I thought this is kind of interesting to read. Remember how here in Canada they found various residential schools had, I guess, buried children, and after all these years it was discovered? And during that time, for whatever reason, Transport Canada decided to ban certain areas where no drones are allowed to fly there, even like say a toy drone. And even I would wonder why. Can't people use it in a good way to document the situation, potentially find other sites? So this one here, it wasn't in BC, apparently it was in Manitoba. And they actually used drones apparently, I guess, to try to find more sites. It says 2 Manitoba First Nations search former residential school sites, find anomalies. King's efforts began last year. Residential school survivors shared their memories of areas they thought could have graves linked to the Fort Alexander Residential School. The school was opened in 1905 in the community of Fort Alexander, which later became King First Nation. It ran until 1970 and had a reputation for abuse. Survivors told the Truth and Reconciliation Commission about starvation and harsh discipline. The community worked with a drone company which conducted ground-penetrating radar on 3 levels. Henderson said it found 2 locations with anomalies. Neither is a known graveyard, but both were spots residential school survivors had pointed to on maps before the search began. So there's an example, I guess, people using the drone tech in a way to try to help discover, I guess, more information. So I'm wondering, why completely ban it? Like here, when they discovered those sites, wouldn't it have helped to discover more areas? Ultimately, I guess people want closure, I could imagine, during those times too. Imagine being abused in that way. You're telling people, but then you have people on the other side who can't relate because they're not dealing with it. They're probably saying, you bunch of whiners, it's a school made for you and so forth. This one says, many community members are struggling with unanswered questions as more anomalies are found, Henderson said. It will take time to find certainty, he added, and only after that can closure and healing begin. Now we know the locations. Now we know there's something. And from the sounds of it, they're treating it like a crime scene, as they say, and it says, Minigazeb Anishinaabe also hired a drone technology company that specializes in ground-penetrating radar. The company used a cart to perform a ground search under the church due to the confined space, a community notice said. Survivors and community members have directed leadership to do another, more detailed radar search of the basement. Even I'm inclined to ask, was all that ban of drones here in BC when all this was discovered was to prevent, for example, potentially the discovery of more sites and so forth? Because again, with this example, you could have used it in a good way. And that's kind of, I guess, the danger too, when you make it so broad for someone to just, quote, ban them all and all that. How about situations like these, where now you can't use it in a potentially good way? And I thought this was kind of interesting for perspective, where here in BC, they're having a lot of, I guess, issues with people trying to find homes at an affordable price. And one of the solutions has always been, okay, build more places, but that's kind of overlooking what one of the issue is. Because apparently here, recently Stats Canada released all this data of home ownership and so forth. And apparently, I guess, when you look at the numbers, like for example, it says owning, I guess, things like property, non-resident ownership rate 3.5%, non-individual ownership rate 9.8%. So when you break down the numbers, it almost sounds like there's tons of people who actually buy up a bunch of properties more as an investment. Like for example, maybe there's about, 80,000 people or so owning more than one home, like 2 or so, and they're renting it. So that's kind of an issue where there's people with the money that are buying everything up. So it doesn't matter how much you build, if you don't solve that problem, then it'll constantly be an issue. Where the people who can't afford it, for example, will always lose out to people with the money who will then rent it back to them for an outrageous price. So one of the thought there in terms of perspective is you can't just, quote, keep building it. You have to deal with the people that are, I guess, buying everything up per se. So it's kind of like one-dimensional thinking. Oh, just build more, problem solved. Whereas the issue is a lot, I guess, deeper. Because it reminds me of this interesting, I guess, thing I saw recently where I talked about things like equality and so forth. Now, a lot of people are debating, oh, this isn't true in that sense and vice versa, but the important thing is, in my opinion, why I like stuff like this is it gets you to think. Like in that sense of just coming up with this one solution, like, oh, this guy's not getting this, so just do this. So you can look at this picture here. First it says inequality, unequal access to opportunities. So it's showing you, for example, I guess, two people trying to get apple from a tree, but the tree is more, I guess, leaning towards one side, so the fruits and stuff is going to keep dropping there. So that is, I guess, inequality according to this picture anyways. So I guess the answer there for a lot of people would be, okay, just build something so that both of them could actually reach it easier. So it says here, equality, evenly distributed tools and assistance. And you see here, they both have the same ladder, they're given the same resources, but the tree is still tilting on that side, so the person still can't really get anything. It's kind of interesting to think about in that sense. And then it says equity, custom tools that identify and address inequality. So like there, you don't give people, I guess, the exact same ladder. Based on the situation, you have to give like that person the taller ladder. So now you can see them both, I guess, getting fruit from the tree. And then the last one, again, it's interesting to think about. The other solution would have been, I guess, to fix the tree in general first. Because here it says justice, fixing the system to offer equal access to both tools and opportunities. So there you did give people, I guess, both of them the same, I guess, height in terms of a ladder, but you actually fixed the tree, so it's actually evenly, I guess, distributed in terms of like the height that they'd have to reach. So that's kind of interesting to think about overall. Kind of like that house example. It's always really one-dimensional thinking, oh, just build more or whatever, then automatically everyone will have the same thing. But in reality, there's a bigger issue. Like here, you need to fix the tree per se. I like things like this because they really get you to think in terms of perspective. I can imagine back then, again, like for that first story, where way back, probably with that school situation, with the residential school, there probably is a ton of people saying, whatever, you guys get like this schooling or whatever, just deal with it because we go to school, for example, we have no issue, but they're not really looking at the big picture in terms of how they're treated as individuals, for example, and what they need specifically. So many times people need to open up their mind and be a little bit more, I guess, diverse, in my opinion, instead of always assuming what works for you has to work for everyone else, because the situations aren't exactly the same in most cases. Protest, it seems. Such contrasting worlds, huh? One side you could be fighting for some kind of right, the other side you're just enjoying the day. Alright, see you guys later.